we're going to talk about selling without selling out. To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly. Now, my friends, if you want to, hey DJ, like if you want to talk about congruency, today is going to be probably one of the most congruent conversations on Sales Chatter. Before we go there, though, we're going to introduce you to Andy Paul. But before we go there, if I could just share this for 1 second. So Andy Paul just released his new book, Sell Without Selling Out. And here we go. Here's some of the results. So we are talking number 2, 3, and 4 on Amazon. Hot new releases today. So Andy, congratulations, my friend. And after DJ and I were just talking off air, and we're literally going over all the different strategies. And we're like, oh my God, we love this, we love this, we love this. And this is what we want to talk about. That was pages. And I've listened to the book twice since I got it. Just love it.
It's my new sales Bible. I've shared it, but it is. It really is.
Yeah. It's such an incredible book. Oh, Lisa says, wow, congrats. Way to go.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa.
Yes.
So we have got, everybody, Andy Paul, author of the new book, Sell Without Selling Out. Andy, we got you for half an hour. And I mean, I think it's going to be like a rapid fire session here because we have so much we want to talk about. I'll let DJ lead because he has got some really cool things he wants to ask you. So DJ, why don't we lead with those pillars and then, which one? And then we'll lead out from there, brother.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, so excited to talk to you. Really is the sales Bible. You talk when you talk about feeling not to be able to do the hard things that you've seen in sales early on. That resonated so deep with me because I thought there was something wrong with me. Like everybody's telling me I'm good in sales, but I don't feel like I can't do what those guys do. I can't be a jerk. I can't be aggressive. I can't do those things.
Be salesy.
Yeah, I can't be exactly salesy.
Right.
It wasn't you at your core.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I guess which of the 4 pillars, if you had to pick one, would you say is the most important to you?
Oh, great question.
So hold on, before we go there, sorry, Andy, before we go there, the 4 pillars for everybody listening that hasn't read the book is connection, curiosity, understanding, and generosity. So those are the 4 pillars of DJ.
4 pillars of selling in. Yeah. So the contrast of selling out, selling in. Probably for me personally, it was really sort of the combined curiosity and understanding.
Okay.
Right. Because I think there are many times in my career where I was competing on deals where maybe I really shouldn't have won the business, but because I was able to develop a better understanding of what was most important to the buyer, that I was able to be perceived as a source of value for them. Right. And so I think to me, that's probably the most important for me personally, but they all bleed into one another, right? As if I hadn't formed a good connection with somebody, if I hadn't built that rapport, built the level of trust, then they weren't going to open up to me to let me ask the questions and get the answers I needed to get to that level of understanding. So, they all connect, but yeah.
I love it.
Which one's yours, DJ?
Mine was generosity, honestly. That whole section and what you talked about there just really, it's always what kind of I feel inside like I just want to lead there. And so, everything you talked about in that section, you're right. The 4 pillars, they do bleed into each other and really kind of all lend a hand to each other. But the generosity section was like, yes, this is we need more of this.
Well, it's not a word that's associated with selling very often.
No, right? Exactly. Yes.
But it's really at the heart of it. I sort of deconstruct. If you think, okay, it's my sort of base statement is, selling is about listening to the buyer to understand what's most important things to them and then help them get that. Well, just deconstruct that statement as listening to the buyer. That's a generous act, right? Understand what's most important to them. That's generous act. Helping them get it. That's generous as well. So generosity is just sort of at the heart of selling.
That's good. And you know what? That those four that layer on top of each other and bleed into each other bleeds right into your 5 layers, 5 layered questions before you have to answer one question. It's
Right.
funny because that came just after your Tom Hanks, wait, why am I talking?
Right.
And when I first heard that, it was one of these things where it's like, okay, how do I do that? Because it was, to me, that was super cool where we can, build that, almost, you're building rapport, you're creating that curiosity, you're creating an understanding for yourself, and you're being very generous and letting the other individual speak as you're asking these questions that layer on top of each other. um I never heard of that strategy before, and immediately went to work and wrote about 2 pages on how to apply it to our industry, like just
Mhm.
specific to the logistics industry.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll let you know how that comes, because that's
Okay.
going to be
Yeah.
the
No, I'd
new
love to.
test today. I'll definitely let you know how that comes, and I'll send you the questions and kind of what the answers are. I'm a huge data freak.
Right.
I track every single rebuttal I hear, every single response, and my OCD, if you will, is sitting there at nighttime going, how do I make that response better? And how can I clarify, or how can I use less words, but have more impact for the customer? Or how can I use less words and share my inner soul to the customer, or what's truly possible, what we can truly do as a company, as a corporation, as individuals. So I'm consistently trying to, well, like what you
Experiment.
said, I believe it was in chapter 2, take control of how you sell,
Yeah.
because
Well, and it requires this level of intentionality that you're showing, right?
mm,
Is you have to keep thinking about these things, right? It's okay to ruminate about things at night, and this is not a work-life balance thing. This is something you're really passionate about, and yeah, try new things, experiment. Um, my favorite sayings is Ralph Waldo Emerson talking about all life is an experiment. You know,
Yes.
we'll use more experiments. Something I'm sort of paraphrasing, but
yep.
is yeah, keep experimenting. Or I talk about in the book the story with Bruce Arena talking about Clint Dempsey, and soccer player.
Mhm.
Yeah, people say, why is he so successful? Because he, you say this word on your podcast, but he says, because he tries shit, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh, you could say that. Don't worry. We're in
Oh, you
yeah,
can
Trucking.
say that. Yeah, we've said
that,
worse than that.
and and that's the thing about sales. There is no rule book in sales. Try
Mhm.
shit, see what works.
Mhm.
Yes, and I love that you said that in the book, because that's you have to learn. Just learn new. You don't know what's best for you.
For you,
What's best for
exactly.
you is it could be best for everybody has their own best, and what's works best for them. So you're not going to know unless you try.
Well, and that's the really important thing for managers I
Yeah,
address in the book. Even the book is primarily addressed to sellers, but I've got that section in the middle for
I
managers.
love when you added that in there. Yeah,
is is you got to give people the autonomy to be able to do this exploration, this experimentation, to become the best version of themselves. And
Mhm.
the research is really, really clear, is that if you give people agency over the choices they make, they will become more productive, more motivated, more fulfilled in the work they do and the choices they make. And yet, it's hard for managers to sort of let go, because they think, this is the way we should be doing it. And I'd like to say, if there's 5 million salespeople in the United States, there's 5 million ways of selling. And what we need to do is help each person become the best version of themselves.
Wow.
Yes, yes, sir.
Love that.
Now, you going into that, you mentioned the connection, and I love that you use the words influence and persuade or convince, because I think uh, those are such a great way to define the difference between salespeople and or versions of sales
Versions
people
of
is what I
salespeople.
say. And you said you have to have the connection to influence. Can you go into
Yeah.
that? 'Cause I think
Well, I think that yeah, draw this distinction between persuasion and influence. And I quote in the book that Jonah Berger wrote this book called The Catalyst, a very smart guy, book about persuasion. And he said that research shows that as humans, we universally resist being persuaded.
yeah,
So if that's sort of your default MO as a seller, is to go out and try to persuade someone to buy your product, what's the first thing you run into? Is their defenses are up.
Mhm.
So when
Mhm.
you build a connection with someone, and what they're basically doing is, when they develop that level of trust, they're basically opening the door to you to say, we're going to give you permission to influence the choices we're going to make about how to solve our problem and how to achieve our desired outcomes. And when you're working with the buyer as opposed to selling to them or at them, then it's a whole different approach to the game. And that's really what you want to try to do is you're there to help them, not impose yourself on them.
It's kind of like the old saying, selling ice to an Eskimo. And, you know, I've heard people sell ice to an Eskimo and I'll ask them to step aside while I cut it out from underneath. And I'm like, that's bullshit, because Eskimos don't need ice.
No.
They don't need it. So
No.
that's persuasion over influence. And
It's coercion.
Yes, even better.
Oh,
not even
yes,
persuasion,
exactly.
it's coercion.
Even deeper.
You know, in our industry, every sales rep has something unique. Mm-hmm. Every sales rep, every company, every team offers something different, and they're not the best in everything. You know, it's not like DJ and I were talking off air. I said, it's not like, you know, as sales reps, it's not like we're an Oracle or we're an Adobe. You know, if you're a salesperson for Adobe, you can almost call any company and they're going to have a marketing team that might need Photoshop or some web services. They're going to have a server. They're going to have like all of Adobe's web services and all, you know, all that. Oracle, you might be able to piece some of your programs or SaaS products in different departments. So almost everyone can be a prospect, a real prospect. In our industry, it's people. It's not systems. It's we are the service, because people buy us. I apologize. I got a 12-week-old puppy that's jumping.
Oh, it's
fine. So we are the service that people offer and ask for. And so when we are the service, not everyone is going to want the exact service that we are best at. Right. And that's where when in your book, when you were like, you know, I was selling, but I wasn't me. Like, I absolutely love when you're like, you know, I apologize. I think his name was Jack for calling me on Christmas Eve in your mosque, asking you to send over the contract because your bosses were all over you. And it's that piece of the puzzle that so many salespeople in our specific industry miss.
Right.
They're like, if they ship product, I can help them. And that's where they try and coerce people into using them. But it never, in the end, you know, 6 weeks later, when the customer's gone, 5 weeks later, when there's huge issues and it's consuming 90% of your time, it's not your ideal customer.
No.
You know, and you know, DJ and I talk all the time about customer profile and how does your customer profile help you sell more, be more, do more, and achieve more, and really be there for the people that need you.
Right.
My firm belief, everybody has a special, unique gift. And if they are not picking up the phone and prospecting, you're actually not being as of service as you can be to the next person that needs what you have.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. It gets down to, I think what you're alluding to as well, is that in so many industries these days, and I would say even in large sections of Oracle's business and Adobe's business, their products are basically identical to everybody else's products out there. Right. And so the differences are so slim. It's, well, how do you differentiate yourself? Well, you differentiate yourself based on it's you, right? I mean, there's again been plenty of research into this that in situations like that where the products are somewhat commoditized, is the difference is the experience the buyer has with you as a seller. That becomes the difference maker. So
I love that you said that, Andy, because I believe in my heart, like value, the way to really build value is the experience. It's in the experience that they get from that whole process with you is the value that we can bring.
Well, well, because that's where you're bringing the connection. That's where you're bringing the curiosity. That's where you're bringing the understanding. That's where you're bringing the generosity. That's through you as an individual, and some is the organization as well. But it's but they're making that decision based. Okay, it's between DJ and Dan. Yeah, that I don't know, something about DJ. We just had seemed to have a better connection there, and
he's got a nicer smile. He's got a nicer
I
smile.
knew you were going there. That's why.
but the difference is that can be pretty small. And as I talk about in the book, stories where won deals where someone said, "Why'd we win?" Because we were, in my mind, the complete underdog. And I said, "Because you were the only one that made us feel understood." That's something you do as an individual.
Yeah. Lisa's asking a great question here. And he says, what are the best ways to build connections?
Well, start by being interested in the other person, right? How do you make yourself interesting to someone is be interested in them. And this is such a simple thing. As if you're going to go into a call with somebody and you're all about pitching, right? I'm gonna go and I'm just gonna pitch. It's like, well, you're not demonstrating an interest in the other person. And so there's been this trend among some sales trainers over the last several years is don't do small talk, right? Small talk, yeah, just not important. And again, it's one thing where they've actually studied this and said small talk is absolutely essential to building new relationships. And so it's just be human, right? Is I like to tell people, even though this is sort of like a dirty word to a lot of people in sales, is that what do you do if you're making a new friend? Right now, I'm not trying to make my buyer a friend. Just want to be very clear about that. But it's the motion is the same, right? If you meet somebody socially and you think there's a little bit of connection, maybe that you want to build that relationship. What's the first thing you do? Do you pitch them? I mean, you're at a PTA.
Some people do.
Yeah. Can I get your name and address and put you into my friend funnel? You don't do that, right? You're curious about the other person. You want to find out something about them. Well, do the same thing with your buyers. It's just be interested in them. Where'd you grow up? Where would you work before you came here? I mean, I talk about in the book is this rule I call the ask 5 questions, or ask 5 rule, excuse me, which is, can I ask 5 questions of someone before I have to talk about myself?
Yes.
And then you're demonstrating an interest in somebody. And so you can do a little bit of planning, you do a little research on somebody you're going to meet on LinkedIn, and you can actually plan this out and just you engage from that perspective. And suddenly it's like a whole different conversation. And then they'll say, well, so tell me, what do you do? Well, that's right. At that point, you start given permission to start talking about yourself. But prior to that, make it about them.
I love it.
It was one thing Bob Berg always talked about is don't talk about yourself, frame it into their perspective and put yourself in their shoes, so we'll do a couple of
So what's your dog's name?
Her name is Stella, and
so
I've got a 3-year-old golden doodle, and Stella's a 12-week-old golden doodle. And let me tell you, some days are real good and some days aren't. So I'm gonna go on mute for a second while we take care
our
of this
thing is
situation.
people are posting pictures of their dogs reading my book. So
yeah, well, you know what? Maybe we'll have to get, if she'll sit still long enough, I'll get a picture of that still for sure. Yeah. So DJ, I'm going to let you go through some of the comments here for a second, and then I'll just make sure Stella's got a toy, and then I'll be right back.
No worries. I actually have so Andy, you mentioned human, and I'm so glad you went there because I feel like just us as humans are stopping to realize that other people are humans and not just a commission and you said it so well in you said the linear stage based selling process. And you said buyer is an inconvenient obstacle standing in the way of them getting the order. And that is exactly what it comes off on a lot of people. And I think it's so powerful you said that because we just have to relate as humans. Remember, that person you're selling to is a human just like you. They might have kids, they might have responsibilities. No matter how rich or who they are, they have the same. They're probably going through the same things in different ways that we are.
And they've probably been screwed over by salespeople doing that already, which is why their backs up. Like in our industry, DJ, how many times have you come across a prospect that has said, brokers, you guys kind of left me hanging on the 11th hour. And most of the time, customers get left hanging on the 11th hour because they undersold the price. They didn't have capacity when they said they had capacity, or they found a better paying customer to use their time with. Right. So those are the typical 3 scenarios that as brokers we face. It's like, you talked about the used car salesman, you talked about the slick snake oil salesman, you talk about all these different things. DJ and I, before we jumped on, we were talking about, that stigma with I'm a salesperson, and it's like, oh, and all of a sudden, the big cross goes up, the garlic comes out, they put the garlic necklace on, and it's like Bad Boys or whatever, that Lost Boys, the old movie.
I talk about in the book though is that a lot of the stereotypes are unfair, but they're also deserved at the same time, right? They don't exist for no reason at all. They exist because of the behavior that people have with buyers. And to your point you made before, DJ, is this yeah, is that's really the reason I brought that up in the book is that the vast majority of sellers and sales managers are so focused on their process, right?
Yes.
And we have to execute our process, and our process looks like this. And I said it's usually linear stages, right? We've got initial contact, we've got a discovery call, and serve, and it sort of makes everything sort of neat, right? Oh, we do this call and then we move to this stage, and that doesn't work that way, right? I mean, discovery is a perfect
Exactly.
example. I mean, discovery is not a one-time event. If you're dealing with a customer as they learn more about the services you offer and the ways you can help them, then maybe their needs change, maybe their vision of what their outcomes they can achieve change. But if you're focusing your selling efforts based on what you learned about them on your first call, you've missed the boat, right? They're already
Yes.
moved on.
Wait,
So
yeah, you didn't find that understanding, like you mentioned. It's
didn't get that level of understanding. So
yeah,
what happens is sales looks at this whole buying process from only the sales perspective instead of looking at it from the buyer's perspective. So
yes,
to me, I believe and I advocate is just we should get rid of those stage-based sales processes that are in your CRM system and replace them with what are the stages the buyer goes through. Because you should only talk about, how do we stand on this opportunity? If you're doing a pipeline review with a seller, we should only talk about an opportunity in the context of where the buyer stands.
yes,
Because the buyers, they don't identify with our sales stages. So as long as we have this misalignment, that contributes to the whole problem of what we're talking about.
yes.
I
Agreed.
love that.
Oh,
I
I
love
love
that.
that. Yes.
Chris says that is what sales is supposed to be. Has become something ugly over the years. Even the term salesy is so negative.
Yes.
It is, right? Solving
Yeah,
challenges
in
is
my
what
mind.
sales is all about.
Oh, you explain it very, Chris. You got to read the book. He explains the salesy very well in the book. It was
Oh, yeah.
everything that I felt dirty doing the whole time before I realized, hey, I'm just going to be me.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
I
and
mean, think about
we've
it,
all been
DJ.
put into situations we've had to do it by bosses, and
Yeah.
I didn't even begin to list all the horror stories that early in my career I was subjected to with bosses to do things basically for them that submarine the relationship I'd built with a buyer.
Mhm. Well, there's also the so DJ and I, our sales training in logistics was sit with this person and listen to them, sit with that person and listen to them.
Mhm.
And the problem with that is it perpetuates all the negative things that go on with sales. And one
Right.
thing in my career when I first started was how do I know this person's a good salesperson? Like
Mhm.
they might do good numbers, but how do I know they're not recycling, like going through customers like a madman, just
Right.
churning them out because of a commission?
Right.
Right. And when it's a funny thing because we look at, we did a whole bunch of interviews prior to 2022. And the number one thing companies said is this year it's profit. Profit is number one.
Mhm.
And even major companies, major companies like the biggest paint companies in the world are going through a major transition. You look at Frito-Lay, for example, who just hit the papers the other day, firing Loblaws.
Mhm.
Loblaws controls 33% of the Canadian grocery market. And Frito-Lay said, if you're not going to take our price increase, I'm done. We're not dealing with you. So they're willing to give up all of that. Now,
Wow.
PepsiCo owns Frito-Lay.
Right,
So you
yeah.
look at, right? So you wonder what's going to happen next. Either Loblaws is going to give in and take the price increase, but Frito-Lay is saying, listen, supply chain's up, costs are up, this is
Yep.
up, this is up. And here's the kind of flip side of that when you talk about the buyer. The buyer, Loblaws, is saying, but we have to protect our prices for our customers. Like, I understand you need more money, but our customers don't want to pay $6 for a bag of chips.
Mhm.
So there's that polarity, and I'm on the end going, yeah, I agree with you because I don't want to pay $6 for my
Sure.
spicy Miss Vicky's chips or my sweet chili heat Doritos. I'll be honest with you, I don't want to pay that, but it's like I understand costs. I'm in logistics. I know costs are going up, right? I see it when I go to the grocery store. What used to cost me $300 is now, as of last week, $417. Same basic groceries, $115 a week could equate to $600 and something a month.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a huge increase. And you sit there and it's that polarity. And in a situation like this, I'm on both sides because I'm like, yes, I know you need more money because you're probably not paying your carriers what you should be paying, or your carriers are demanding this.
Mhm.
But companies are actually sitting there saying, one of my friends at Sherwin-Williams, he says, we've had 4 raises in the last 12 months to our customers. And the customers that say no, we just stop dealing with them. And you as Andy, in that environment, what do you see as the end result? Do you see companies starting to go, you know what, fine, I'm going to find the product elsewhere? Or do you, like, how do you see that pitching in the end?
Yeah. I mean,
Not to set you up totally, but just,
yeah, I mean,
I was
not
curious
that
to
I'm
see
not
what
that
you
I'm
think, like in the
an
end.
economic expert at all, but yeah, this is, think about it. I mean, we've basically been in an inflation-free environment for so many years, right? And I look back to when I got started in my career, inflation was in the high double digits. Yeah, well, not high double digits, but it's in the 17, 18, 19% a year type range. This is back in the long time ago. Yeah, my first mortgage was
Early 80s, everyone, early 80s.
yes, I wish. And so I think part of this is yeah, we're in this business environment where people have never had to contend with this, right? And I think this is, think about it. We've had sort of 14 pretty solid years of economic growth without a recession since 2008. Yeah, how are people going to react to it? I think that the people that are making these decisions just haven't had to go through this before, right? And that's what I think some of the obstacles come from, like with Pepsi dealing with Loblaws is, this is brand new to us. We haven't had to deal with this. And it's like, well, yeah, everybody's going to have to sort of feel the pain a little bit because inflation is real. So you can't expect your suppliers to eat it. And by same token, yeah, you can't expect the customers to eat it all as well. Where's the middle ground? And I think that's eventually what people are going to find is what's the middle ground. But
So
I mean, I
with
think
that,
yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
go on.
No,
No,
go ahead.
I was actually just going to ask you a follow-up layered question to that.
No, go ahead.
Because
Go.
I thought it would be really helpful to the audience. What are some suggestions you have when you go into a conversation on having to raise rates with customers?
It has to be a partnership discussion, right? Is because you're laying your cards on the table. Is we both have to be healthy. If neither of us are healthy, we're going to do, or one of us isn't healthy and the other is, then we're going to do what Frito does and said, look, we're out of it. Right. So I'm trying to think back where I had to encounter that in my career. We've raised prices, but we try to do it in a way that I said is a partnership. So maybe we don't take as much year one as we're going to say, but you got to maybe extend your commitment with us. Right. So if you're doing multi-year deals, which we sometimes did is in my businesses, we'll spread out the price increases over a multi-year period. We'll take a little bit of the pain, but we're going to lock in a gain with you over an extended period of time. So everybody has to give a little bit.
And I love that you said that, Andy, because the partnership is the key. And I think, guys, if to get to that feeling of partnership, if you read this book and just go through those 4 pillars that he lays out in this book, that is how you get that feeling of the partnership. Your client will feel like you are a partnership. There's no other way. I feel like, I mean, and you want them to feel like you're feeling the pain just and have the understanding that, look, we don't want to raise the rates on you, like, but this is what we have to do. And if you have that understanding and that connection, they'll understand.
And I think there's an education piece in there.
Right.
That absolutely needs to be paramount for your customers. Like our industry is so dynamic, especially now. Rates are changing daily. Numbers are changing daily. As one storm on the northeast will cause rates to rise on the southwest because all the trucks are moving northeast to service it for like FEMA or that kind of thing.
Or Russia invades Ukraine and fuel prices go up.
Yes, I mean everything.
Gas prices are going to about skyrocket.
Landslide in BC equates to no French fries in Japan. Like there's all these rock in a pond over here is a tidal wave over here scenarios, right? You even look at just like in the last week, some of the stuff that has been in the news, 4,000 vehicles with all the shortage of vehicles and transistor chips are on fire heading towards a port in North America because of an EV caught fire and it caught the ship on fire. Like there's
I'm not a Bentley buyer, so it didn't affect me personally, but
yeah, me neither. I'm an EV buyer, so I'm like, but none of the EVs that I'm looking at were on there. But it's first thing I did was call my I've got an F-150 on order, and I called my guy and I'm like, hey, please tell me my truck's not on there. He goes, no, you're good. Your truck's being made in North America.
That's Porsches and Bentleys.
Yeah, well, there was Volkswagens, there was Porsches, Bentleys, Audis, Volkswagens. So the new Audi electric is a pretty sweet
Yeah.
vehicle too.
Yeah.
But so that education piece for our customers. We had a gentleman on the show. Was it yesterday, DJ, or I think it was yesterday, or no,
Okay.
Tuesday, when he was talking about he was dealing with a company and he needs a rate increase because he hasn't had a rate increase since 2019. And that, I think, goes back to the market that you were talking about, Andy, where it's like there's really been no major thing for us in our industry. 2018 into 19 was a very dynamic year when ELD came in and things started to really rise. But 2019, the overcapacity brought the market rates down.
Right.
And I think they've been very slow to rise up until this year. Whereas, part of being in the present with your customers is knowing the markets and ensuring you keep them ahead of the change curve. 8-9
Absolutely.
months ago, saying, guys, we're going to hit a major crunch here and things are going to happen.
Yeah, I mean the supply chain issues shouldn't be of a surprise to anybody, right? I mean, that was forecasted back in 2020. We are already beginning to see some of the impact of that, just with factory shutdowns and the like. So yeah, I think the point Jeff makes in the comments is absolutely right. Is and the one you just made, Dan, is collaboration with them, keep them informed. Chances are, if you've got a big client, especially in your business, they probably have people that are paying attention to the freight, fuel prices and all the other external things that could affect their rates. But have those conversations on an ongoing basis. That's the thing that I think that, like with Frito, which I presume they didn't do, but if you just show up one day and say, 12% increase, it's like, no, right? What's the bargain say? They're gonna say, no, of course not. And then you get into this adversarial thing. Whereas if you keep people informed, it doesn't mean the pain is any less, but at least you try to find a way to work it out together. And
that's what I was going to say.
and
It's not always a great conversation.
No.
On the flip end, so in your businesses that when you were selling, there's a margin, right? And I'd love your thoughts on this. As long as your margin is not absorbent, like astronomical,
right?
I think you're fair to ask a fair price for what you do. So if your rates go up 9% and your margin's 15%, you raise the rates 9%, not 15%. If you're still in that 30 to 40% margin, those are unhealthy margins in our environment today because of what's going on in the world. I don't say you raise it 9% and now you're 39% above market because you're only asking to get cut off from a customer when somebody else, another salesperson that sells with integrity, comes in and cuts your throat, right? They cut my throat. No, they're just being honest.
Right.
And they're doing a decent margin. Like there's always, what do you think of this, Andy? There's always a margin that is healthy for what you deliver in value. Yes or no?
Theoretically, it sounds good. Yeah. Again, it's always like in the eye of the beholder with the customer, right? I mean, it's.
I'm so glad you said that
because I spent a lot of my career before I started my own company a couple decades ago in sort of the computer hardware business, technology hardware business, selling satellite communication systems, actually. So margins in hardware were much smaller than margins in software like are today. And so we paid a lot of attention to it. And again, we really tried to go to the position of, if there's going to be pain, can we share the pain, right? In a way that helps the customer still achieve what they want to achieve, but again, maybe lock something in for us. But it's, even then, I had situations I was in where we just had hard limits and we could not go beneath it. And sometimes you just have to walk away from a deal too. And not all of them can be saved. So it's hard, but you sort of test the limits of that relationship when you get into those discussions, because my first big deals that I was ever closed, first $1 million plus deal. This was ages ago, but I was with my boss, and this was with a customer that we hadn't sold anything to them yet. They were still prospects to be our first deal, but we had spent a long time building the relationship with them, and we really thought we were really in tune, and we basically agreed to pricing. But then at the last meeting we had with them, their chairman or somebody that hadn't been involved in the discussion shows up in the room and decides that he wants to be the hero and he's going to try to negotiate that next X% off the deal. And as I said, I was there with my boss, and my boss hears that and he goes, huh, all right, well, thank you for your time. Stands up and says, I thought you guys were serious buyers, but I guess not. Turns and walks out of the room. And I'm like, oh my God, on the floor. This is my first
Good for him.
deal. Yeah, and I didn't know what to say, and I stand up and I follow him out, and then we didn't even get to the elevator before they said, yeah, come on back. Right? We're sorry about the chairman, he hadn't been part of the conversation. They basically told him to shut up. But since we had such a strong relationship, we were able to test that relationship in that moment, and it paid off. But if absent that relationship, we would just walked and kept on going to the airport.
Well, it's actually kind of a cheesy thing to do at the 11th hour, say, okay, I want a discount, when almost everything's kind of been agreed to lead up to the 11th hour, right? Like
in negotiations, you have to expect it, though. There's always going to be those. I feel like there's always somebody coming in at the last minute trying to still get a little bit more.
Well, I've got the hairiest negotiation story, I think, is so I was negotiating with again, we're selling a system to one of the major media players in the United States. It's a Fortune 100 type company. And this is going to be for a system that was the first real-time entertainment delivered to commercial airlines via satellite. And I was with a startup, and we'd beaten out all these big name competitors to sort of get the business. And so I was negotiating with a senior VP of this Fortune 100 type company, and we'd been out negotiating for a couple of days. Near the end of the second day, I get a call from one of the founders of this company, and he said, so how's it going? I said, well, it's pretty good. We're just about ready to wrap up, I think, here, maybe tomorrow. He said, great. He says, well, got some bad news for you. I said, well, what's that? So our contract was they're going to pay us a fair amount of money up front to develop the system for them, and then they were going to buy X number of units to go on these commercial airplanes. And he said, well, we discovered that somebody made a mistake on the spreadsheet in the cost calculation, and we're going to have to increase our prices. I said, what? No. And I said, what are you talking about? 5%? No, 50%.
Hold on.
That's a big mistake.
50%.
5-0. That's a big mistake.
And I said,
oh my goodness.
And so I'm in a conference, in somebody's office adjacent to this conference room, having this call, and the CEO gets on the phone and he says, he's just mortified. They said, we can't, we'd lose millions of dollars on this contract if we took on this current pricing. We were a venture funded outfit, couldn't obviously do that anyway. So I had to go back in and tell this senior VP of this large public company that we're going to raise your prices 50%. Oh yeah. We were escorted out of the building. No, but came back the next day and we closed the deal. So that was the power of the relationship. They knew, because of my relationship with them and that I had built with them over the course of a year, that I wasn't baiting and switching them. They knew it was an honest mistake. It still hurt though, because this guy was going to have to go back to the executive committee and ask for more money.
Why to stick with you? Go raising the prices 50%.
Yes, it was just horrible.
Nigel says it perfect. He says just shows how important business acumen is. Such understanding is becoming more necessary when selling in 2022.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, hi Nigel. I see Nigel on my LinkedIn.
Yeah, good man, Nigel. From across the pond. He's across the pond, Nigel. We've had him on the show a couple of times, and he's coming back on. He's an awesome individual. We like Nigel a lot.
It just shows the power of that connection that you build with someone. It's just,
I agree.
First and foremost, is so important.
Yeah.
And Jeff just can't be understated, because this is one that cost this company at the time about $1.5 million up front. That at the end of the day, they said, it's still worth it.
Yeah.
That's a testament to the relationship you built, though. Obviously,
it was. Yeah. Well, actually, and interestingly, the same group, the people that was doing this within this major media company, spun off a couple of years later, 10 years later, and formed another company to do something similar, and came back and did business with me. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah,
That's
There you
a true relationship.
that's the power of the
right?
relationship. Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. We went past time, but I hope everyone feels it was worth it. Andy, thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
Again,
my
if y'all
goodness.
haven't got Andy's book,
Look at that.
Sell
Thank you.
Without Selling Out, it's number
Yes,
2,
please
3,
get
and
out
4 on
Audible.
Amazon New
Listen,
Sellers this
Audible,
week.
guys. It's
Oh man,
amazing.
awesome book. Go grab it today. It is remarkable. You will absolutely love it. And then there you go. I actually ordered a paperback one, and I got it on Audible because I knew it wouldn't be here in time, because they were telling me all of a sudden my Amazon Prime's not next day
Well,
delivery.
I hope you like the sound of my voice, because that's
Yeah, it was all good, brother. It was
For
awesome.
3
Man.
hours.
It was awesome.
I do. You did great.
DJ, take
You
us
did
out of here,
great.
brother.
I had it on Audible.
All right.
I
Thank
do
you.
have a quote to take us out, but before I do, please, guys, this will be on replay on our Sales Chatter Live YouTube channel. So like and subscribe if you want to catch or watch this back. Also, we do have a Sales Chatter Live LinkedIn page. So we're trying to get people to transition there instead of me and Dan's personal LinkedIn. Again, Sales Chatter Live, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. till 9:30. If you want to start your day right, motivated, and fresh, started with us. I did find a quote from Andy to take us out, actually. And
Nice.
Very
so this is from, it says it's a sales series interview, and it was 0 time selling, rocket spin. I don't know if that sounds familiar. That's where it came from.
Oh, okay.
And it's not about what you sell. It's about how you sell.
Yep. It's from my first book, 0 Time Selling. Yeah.
That's it, guys. It's about how you sell.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and